the conversation. It's your host, Adrienne Lawrence. And as we work our way toward the new year, we are definitely working our way toward honoring those who have definitely given back and made some change. And among them is Edgardo Maldonado. That's right, he's the executive director of SEP. That's a disaster resilience and recovery nonprofit. Thanks so much for joining us, Edgardo.
Thank you, Adrienne, for having me, and good night to you.
Yes, all right. So at the end of this month, SVP will be celebrating the 250th home completed in Puerto Rico since Hurricane Maria 5 years ago. That is huge. Tell us about your work.
Sure. We started 5 years ago after Hurricane Maria hit the island as a Category 5 hurricane, affecting all of the island. SBP sent immediately a team of AmeriCorps members in deployment to help recovery. And we started right after that our rebuilding operations. And just last month, we celebrated our 250th completion. We did a welcome home party last week for our homeowner, Jose Nieves, who's a veteran, and his mother, who's 99 years old. So it was really a pleasure to see this family come back home after almost 5 years of Hurricane Maria affecting their home.
Absolutely, because I would imagine that it impacted a considerable number of people, as we know that Hurricane Maria was the deadliest so far in Puerto Rico in more than a century, to my understanding, and also the deadliest named Atlantic hurricane of the 21st century to date. And that is so incredibly significant, in part because there were so many deaths as well as considerable loss there. So I guess when you stepped in and your organization was looking at the extent of the damage, did you feel overwhelmed?
Yes, it was a hurricane that affected the whole island with millions of dollars in damages and thousands of homes destroyed and many of them damaged. So what we did was we started in local communities and started assessing the damage and seeing how we can affect these small communities first, so we can start growing exponentially to other communities as well. So it's overwhelming, and it still is, that there are a lot of clients in our pipeline waiting for help. And now that Hurricane Fiona affected the island a couple of months ago, more work needs to be done across the whole island.
Absolutely, and I do understand about there also being an earthquake in 2020, and these things are almost compounding in terms of the disasters. So I would understand why a lot of people would leave the island, but also the people who stayed and have been investing in rebuilding. I'm guessing those are the people who you've been relying on in terms of helping rebuild those communities. Is that right?
Yes, most of our AmeriCorps members who serve with us and are the people that are doing the job with us, with our team of subcontractors, the majority are from the island, dedicated to serve their own communities as well. But we also have a lot of help from volunteers from the states that come in their free time. We had a lot of college students coming during their spring break and summer to help rebuild the island. So I really want to commend everyone who's interested in helping and everyone who's volunteered with us and donated funds so we can keep rebuilding our work in the island.
Yes, and I definitely commend them as well, because having them devote their time to uplift and to rebuild, because I would imagine that it can be extremely stressful and difficult. And so having their efforts is something very much appreciated and valued. And I also know that with Hurricane Maria, there were at least some 2,900 excess deaths that were linked to the hurricane, and I believe about almost $95 billion in damages. And so, as I would imagine, as we've kind of touched upon, that it can give you a sense of defeat, again, overwhelming. But you say that there are a lot of people who stepped up and have been working and investing in their time and ensuring that they can help rebuild. What would you say is probably your most difficult challenge in this undertaking?
Well, I think right now, being a small organization, we definitely want to do as much as we can. So every bit of funding helps. To this day, we have been fortunate to do a lot of repairs and rebuilds, but we haven't been able to do new builds. 5 years almost after the hurricane, there are a lot of families whose homes were destroyed that are still waiting for the federal funds for them to be able to help rebuild their complete home. So we're hopeful that in the near future we can do that, as well as we can provide other means of housing as affordable housing for people who lost their home or have left the island and decided to come back. So we really want to continue helping more than just repair. We want to do these new builds that I know so many families desperately want.
Absolutely. And I would imagine it wasn't very helpful of the federal government at that point in time, as we were under the Trump administration, in terms of getting the aid and support. Have things changed at all with the Biden administration?
Yes, I think that the federal funds are coming. And I think that the government here is really working hard to make sure that these funds and these works are due faster. I still think there's a lot of bureaucracy involved in terms of getting those funds to the people that need it. So definitely part of our interventions that SBP does, not only in Puerto Rico, but also in the other areas of the states that we've been working on, is really advise and prepare local government advisors in better ways to manage these federal fundings. As a matter of fact, at our headquarters in New Orleans, we give the leadership practitioner course to many municipality and government leaders who can participate in these trainings on how to manage more efficiently in this funding. And this is definitely what we want to do here in Puerto Rico as well.
That's fantastic. It sounds like you're out there helping out a lot of entities, organizations, governments, so that they can be better prepared. With what's going on right now with the snow and all the storms, and it seems like there is ice everywhere, are you finding that your services are very much still in need, even though it's not necessarily a hurricane?
We do, and last year we did help the ice storm that happened in Texas, and as soon as we can, we're going to send a team in deployment to assess the damage and see how we can help. Because every time there's a disaster, SBP is going to be there to provide long-term recovery.
That's amazing. Absolutely fantastic. And so for the people who volunteer and who pitch in, are they able to obtain short-term housing for while they're there? Or how did they make it work? Is it largely people who are local and can afford their own stay?
Yes, we welcome everyone to volunteer. We don't provide housing to volunteers, but we don't charge anything. We don't ask them to bring anything as well. We provide all the tools and materials for them to be able to support our work. So we just kind of ask them to be there. So we rely most of local volunteers as well. But we have found that we have many people that have volunteered with us already that are interested in always helping. So I definitely can count on our amazing volunteers that are going to be there when we need them.
Absolutely. And so for those out there watching, I definitely encourage you to volunteer in 2023, if not these last few days of 2022, because as we are seeing with all the news coverage, the flight stoppage, the ice, the everything, that there are a lot of people in need across the country. So definitely connect with SBP. And can you tell us, is there anything on your agenda that's coming up?
Well, apart from celebrating 250, we're excited to start working next year, starting rebuilding for Hurricane Fiona homes affected in Puerto Rico as we continue our work in Maria, and excited to hit the 300 threshold number. We're also helping with the disaster FEMA appeals for affected survivors that are soliciting FEMA help and are denied by FEMA. So we have a team that is prepared to help these affected survivors get more funding from FEMA that they desperately need to rebuild.
Wonderful. And so when it comes to getting additional funding, is that something that you end up doing in terms of crowdfunding for them, or do you help work in getting the paperwork in? I guess what efforts are you able to provide that really truly enrich these individuals?
So as you may know, FEMA denies most of its applicants when they're affected by a disaster due to the lack of documentation, or they just don't necessarily have the proper documentation or estimates by contractors. So SBP helps them by even paying contractors to provide free estimates for the clients so that they can appeal directly to FEMA, and we handle all the appeal process so they can get more funding from FEMA to rebuild their homes.
That's fantastic. I actually did not know that FEMA denies people considerably. And especially, I would imagine it's a very, very difficult situation when you've just lost your home, your housing, your situation, and all the documentation and maybe the support you'd have. And so your life has been upended. And to be able to fill out everything and get everything, it just almost seems impossible. So, yeah.
And to that point, Adrian, we have a whole list of resources, free resources on our sbpusa.org page. So I welcome everyone to go to sbpusa.org and download all these free guides and resources to help them pre-disaster and post-disaster recovery, including insurance guides, how to avoid contractor fraud, and how to solicit FEMA aid.
That's excellent. Oh my goodness, the work that you do. I know that is so incredibly valuable to members of our communities, as well as people who may be abroad. But also the thing that is also so incredibly important is that these are the most vulnerable times and moments of people's lives. And so to have you there to help them is so big. And so can you please tell the viewers out there who may want to get involved or access more information where they should go?
They should just go to our webpage, sbpusa.org, or find us on Facebook or Instagram under sbpusa. And we have the links to all the operations, including Puerto Rico, and how they can volunteer, donate, or register as an AmeriCorps member to join our team.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Edgardo Maldonado, Executive Director, SBP.